Okay, it seems as if we're live for the second time and it's working. So we've got Paul and we've got Irish on. Um, Fingers crossed it runs smoothly. Gossip has just messaged me saying he'll be possibly on in the next hour. Jay, as I said beforehand, may or may not be jumping on, but good to have a few familiar faces and not so much solo by myself. But yeah. We were discussing obviously last week's action, Eubank versus Yildirim and Crolla, Burns and the undercard. So yeah, I guess I'll pass it on to the one of the guys. There's not really much for me to say in terms of the action. It's best to have a conversation with the others. So I'll bring in Irish first and see how he's doing. How you doing, mate?
How's it going there, Jess?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Just good to be here, man. Good to have a good back and forth with you guys. Good to have Paul back also. What do you think of the weekend's action? Yildirim versus Eubank, Crolla versus Burns, the undercard, few decent fighters on there as well. So what did you make of it?
Let me see. What did we have? The Eubank Yildirim fight. Well, I thought Eubank kind of, he looked good in doing what he did, but we know none of us have much of an idea of Yildirim's level, and also he's a tailor-made style. So, teach us anything new. Like, we haven't seen Eubank in with a boxer since Billy Joe Saunders. So, we don't know whether he's improved at his boxing. But as regards fighting, he's great to watch. So, bring on the George Groves fight. I think he's gonna ice George Groves. Yeah, if Groves gets through Cox. So yeah, I just think I can't wait to see what the odds are on that fight. I'd have Eubank quite a heavy favourite.
So you reckon how do you see that fight playing out if that fight does occur, Eubank versus Groves? Do you think he stops him in the late rounds or the middle rounds, or he ices him completely, KOs, or he just stops him with a barrage of punches? How do you see that one going? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just think at some stage he'll overwhelm him.
Because
I think that he's he's kind of a flawed fighter, and he has a good jab and all that, but I think that Eubank will be able to get on the inside. I think that Martin Murray and what you call the Russian dude, they're able to get on the inside with George Groves. I think Eubank will. And if Eubank's going in there and hitting him with those uppercuts, George Groves is not that the greatest chin in the world, and his stamina is shit. So I'd go mid to late rounds, probably knockout, like 9th round knockout for Eubank, something like that.
Yeah. Did you hear the story that Eubank Jr. came out with, and he said, I used to bash George Groves up in sparring about 90% of the time. Did you hear that? What did you make of that as well?
Well, I'd say a lot of times people think they bash other people up in sparring when it's 50-50, but I wouldn't be surprised if he at least held his own and maybe won those sparring competitions. I wouldn't be surprised. I know that Eubanks have been looking for that George Grove fight on ITV pay-per-view. That was supposed to be their first one they were going to do. They were looking to make that fight a year ago, and it wasn't made for whatever reason. So I don't think they have any fear of George Groves. And Eubank Senior, I'd say Eubank Senior would not have signed up to this thing if he knew there was some slick fighters in there. Probably the only slick fighter we've seen so far, has probably been Skoglund. A fighter like Skoglund would probably give Eubank much more problems than a lot of these other fighters. George Groves has got a jab, but I don't think George Grove is slick. I think he's big and he's got a good long jab and a right hand. But, fighters are able to pressure him, and fighters are able to put him under pressure. If Martin Murray is able to put him under pressure, imagine what Eubank's going to be doing to him. And Eubank seems to be a decent sized super middleweight, not a big one, but and he's got decent power and fast hands and a lot of aggression and a lot of athleticism. And I just think that I expect I expect Eubank to do him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tight fight. I've had some, some casual sort of fans that I speak to outside of the, outside of boxing on YouTube and that sort of stuff, and they're very high on Chris Eubank Jr. They buy into a lot of the Chris Eubank Jr. hype and the Chris Eubank hype. So the Warriors code, so should we say, I guess. So that's a close fight. I don't know how it would go, but I don't want to spoil how it would go, but I think it'd be a very, very close fight to 50-50, and one that I'd actually love to see in terms of the tournament, and the semi-final. I'd like to see that as a final sort of fight, but if Cam Smith does make it through to the final, that's still a big fight, I guess, as well. But I think Smith is highly overrated by the bookies and other sort of boxing punditries as well. Crolla versus Burns. Did you get to see that? And some guys on the undercard that may have caught your eye. What did you think of that card and the fights itself?
Well, Crolla Burns, like I thought that was a poor card. It's a long time since we've had a good card, a UK card. When was the last good UK card we had from any promoter?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Do you know what? The last one I think, like I could be wrong here, was when your man Gervonta Davis came over.
Yeah, versus Liam Walsh, was it?
Yeah, I think that was a good card. I can't remember a good card since then.
Frank always has the knack for these cards, doesn't he? He always has a knack for finding these sort of obscure fights, and they turn out to be barn burners. Similar to the Conlan Nelson fight, was it? That was one of the really, really good fights he had, and he's had a couple of York Hall fights as well. So Frank has a knack for that. I wouldn't say the card is necessarily great, but they work out well for Frank. Did you happen to see Lewis Ritson? He's a Geordie sort of prospect. He looked Robbie Barrett.
He did look pretty good, but Robbie Barrett is useless. Like,
yeah,
let's get it.
Pretty poor, to be fair.
Robbie Barrett, fought the fight of his life and bet your man, what's his name?
Scott Cardle.
Scotty Cardle. And Scott Cardle, I think, is shot. He's been in a number of wars, and he was never any good in the first place. Scotty Cardle is lightweight, is that right?
Yeah, lightweight, yeah.
And was he avoiding any decent good lightweight? Luke Campbell was around there. They wouldn't match Luke Campbell with him. There's a number of I can't remember. There was a number of people who were trying to get their hands for a British title fight, and he ducked and dodged. Your man would. I can't remember now who it was, but I just think that English level fighter, and Ritson, it looks like he's a higher level fighter, but I don't think it was a good fight. I just thought it was a kind of a mismatch, if I'm being honest. Ritter looked good, but it's hard to judge him against a guy who had a fight of his life against a guy who's on the way down. It's just, I think he has something, but we'll see how much it is. I don't know what he doesn't bring to, like the other guy. Barrett is a nice guy or whatever, and he's done well to win his British title. Well, it says a lot. He just got absolutely cleaned out in his first defence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ritson looks like a pretty decent fighter to me. He seemed to show composure. He looked fairly decent compared to some of the guys that have been brought in as opponents, I guess, for some of the guys that Eddie Hearn's been putting on his cards. So yeah, he looks fairly decent. He's obviously signed a multi-fight deal with Matchroom, probably a good deal for him. He'll make a fair bit of money if there's cards in the Northeast. They have Josh Kelly up there. They have a few other guys up there. Bradley Saunders obviously is coming back, but he's not a big name. But as in, they're going to kind of try and hype that sort of northern area and that sort of stuff, especially with the all these sort of new fighters coming out. But so your take on the card wasn't particularly pleasant, I guess.
I thought it was. Look, I think the headliner was just like
underwhelming.
It's not underwhelming because it was what like it's exactly what I expected. You know, an absolute snooze fest between two feather fisters to see matched up in a fight that's going nowhere. You know, and to listen to the worst commentary I've ever listened to. It's an excellent. Will they do it again? Will we get a rematch out of it? You know, who on, you know, what person outside of, the Bedlam Mental Hospital wants to see that one again? Imagine, like, you get sent to hell and what have on repeat on the fucking telly with your eyes pinned open like in Orange, Clockwork Orange, is fucking Crolla versus Ricky Burns for the rest of eternity. Hell. Terrible fight.
Irish, you never failed to give me a good chuckle. I'll give you that. On that note, let's bring in. Thanks for that, Irish. Let's bring in Paul. We haven't heard from Paul since the McGregor fiasco. So hope you're well. Good to have you back.
I'm kind of glad I was muted there. Tom just had me cackling like an old drunk.
How's things? How's things? Good to have you back.
I'm all right. I'm all right. I haven't been too well, but I'm all right now. I'm all good. It's good to be back. Yeah. Cheers. Yeah.
No worries. Did you happen to catch the boxing this weekend? And what did you make of all of it? Eubank versus Eubank, Crolla versus Burns. Any of the other undercard fights you saw?
Yeah. I saw all the ones you're talking about. Crolla Burns. I had Crolla winning quite wide, actually. I don't know what everybody seemed to be saying. Oh, it's dead close and everything. I didn't really see it that way. I had Crolla winning by quite a bit, but it wasn't a great fight. I like all of that. Like, is that the fight you were on about just now, Tom? What you were saying about them saying, "Oh, will we get a rematch and everything?" Were you on about the Crolla Burns fight?
Yeah. Adam Smith was talking about rematches.
Who wanted to fucking see that in the first place? I didn't want to see it the first time.
I agree with that.
You know, and it's like, oh, will we get a rematch? It's like, do we have to have a rematch type of thing? That would be the question I'd be asking more than anything. I mean, you know, Ricky Burns is shot. Let's be honest, he's shot, and he was never that good to start with. Crolla, fucking another overachiever. I mean, like, God, the battle of the overachievers. Like, really, that was. I just don't want to see that again. Eubank Jr. I thought looked good. I do see improvements in him. I mean, Yildirim was god awful. I mean, I don't know what his game plan was, because he seemed to want to get into the pocket, but when he got there, he just didn't do anything at all. It's kind of like, okay, now you're there, what to do? He did absolutely nothing. I don't know what. I don't know what his game plan was. But Eubank Jr. I thought looked good. I agree. I think, you know, kind of like Yildirim kind of like maybe flattered him a little bit. I think it's like some of the fights I know we'll probably go on to talk about. Some of the fights that are happening next week across the pond. Like, he's been matched very well, Eubank Jr. And you know, how is he going to do against a slick guy again? You know, like, I'm not so sure. I also agree George Groves is probably not that guy. Even a younger George Groves, who I was a fan of. Like, I don't think he was particularly slick. And
not since the De Gale fight. The De Gale fight, he was fairly slick. That's the last time.
No, I think the first Froch fight. I'd say the first Froch fight. He looked fairly good there, but he did horribly.
He wasn't slick though. He wasn't.
Did you say slick though?
He wasn't slick. The only time he fought a back foot fight effectively was against De Gale.
Okay,
De Gale's not a come forward fighter.
I get what you're saying. Fair enough.
That was probably one of the best performances I've seen from George Groves, to be honest. I don't think he's been the same fighter since. Well, I don't think he's been the same fighter since the Froch fights, to be completely honest. Not at all. Even the world title win, which is a great win and everything, but the guy was just very, very limited. The guy he was fighting, and I just think I think Eubank will take him to school. Not take him to school, but I think he'll take him to the cleaners. I think he'll kind of like the thing with Eubank is his engine is incredible. You know, he just will not stop from start to finish. And George Groves is not a 12-round fight. He's not a 3 minutes around fighter. You know, he's just not. And I just think when Eubank is able to sort of like get inside on him, he's especially with that body work, because you know Groves' engine is already questionable. That body work's going to take it out of him even more. And I just see Eubank probably stopping him, to be completely honest.
Screw the George Groves fight though. The fight I want to see and everybody else wants to see is Nigel Benn against Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn against Chris Eubank Jr. You know, because Conor Benn is like close to headlining now already, knocking guys out left, right, and centre.
But Conor Benn,
it was good to see him like co-main event there. You know, knocking out a tough guy with a winning record.
Well, I mean, Conor Benn, it's got to be said though. He's, you know, I know people bring up his height and that sort of stuff, but for me, he just looks like a very small welterweight. And then obviously, Eubank Jr. is obviously at that super middle, but Conor Benn should be fighting at maybe lightweight or something like that. He has not got the frame of a welterweight. Just put him in against a, you know, people saying obviously at Matchroom he's a big welterweight. He's going to grow into the weight. Hey, put him against Errol Spence or a Keith Thurman or someone. You know, nowhere near.
He's got a 78% knockout ratio for you know. For the lower weights, that's like, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard territory.
People are trying to wish that into existence, the Conor Benn, because of the dads and that. Wouldn't it be great, you know, the two kids then get it on and we get some wars like that? It's people just trying to cling to the idea of something that happened fucking 30 years ago, 20 years ago or whatever. It's, you know, they're too far apart in size, man. Quite clearly.
Going back to Eubank Jr.
Eubank could cut 20 pounds. Eubank could cut to 154 and they could do a catch weight.
Yeah. All right, Irish. But yeah, I mean, going back to Eubank Jr., who do you think realistically can beat him at 168 or, you know, 160? Obviously, he's not at that weight class anymore. So, campaigning at 168, who do you guys think could beat him? Who are the obvious contenders, I guess?
I think De Gale's an obvious one. De Gale's. I think De Gale's probably got the style to beat him, and Ramirez has probably got a style to beat him as well.
Yeah, and Benavidez, that'd be a great fight. Benavidez versus Eubank is the best fight in the division.
That would be a good fight.
Yeah, that would be a war. I think that would be a definite war. Conscious that we only spent about 15 minutes or so, but there wasn't too much action last week, so we'll crack on with the agenda. And there's a fair amount of, yeah, go on, Paul. Go on.
Oh, the kid that you were talking about on the undercard, what's his name that Matchroom had just signed?
Oh, Lewis Ritson. He's
I thought he looked really good, actually.
Yeah, I thought he did too.
I know Barrett is like, I agree with Tom Barrett's useless, but just looking at him alone, and yeah, of course you can't read too much into it because how many times we see somebody looking great and then they step up and it's another story. So I accept that, but just on what I saw, I think he's got a lot of tools in the box. Seems to have really good punch variety. He's thrown a lot of different stuff, nice combinations, quite a nice jab and that. So yeah, I think he looks quite good actually, this kid.
Yeah, I think what they'll do is they'll use him and Josh Kelly as a springboard for the Geordie sort of prospects and all the northern prospects, and they'll probably just whack him on a card up there or something like that. So money behind him.
Is it like?
Sorry, go on.
Was he a lightweight? Was that a lightweight?
Yeah. Lewis Ritson's a lightweight. He's British lightweight champion now. So, you know, the logical step. He's obviously called out Scott Cardle and Masha. He wants Masha Dodd in his next fight, which would be a good fight, actually. So I'd like to see that fight. But after those fights, I'd assume that if he's still with Eddie, because he's signed a multi-fight deal, he'd probably move up to, they'd probably stick him in at European level and just, you know, get a scrub over and you can knock him over for the EBU or something like that and make a fair bit of money on him. But yeah, well done to him. He's obviously he looked fairly decent against Barry. He looked handy. So yeah, good for him. And obviously Matchroom will probably just make a bit of money on it and a few quid on him. Yeah, the news section is fairly stacked this week. There's been, quite.
What about Sam Egginton?
Oh yeah, he's going to move up to 154, isn't he? He said in his post-fight interview on IFL TV, he thought he's flat at the weight. Mimouni is fairly average. He could dance a little bit, but he faded in the middle rounds, and Sam Egginton didn't really have anything on him. So I don't know what you guys made of that fight if you did watch it, but yeah, probably time for him to move up. But I don't think 154 is actually the best division for him to be in. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean he's not great anyway, is he, to start with? I know I had a good pick on him there a few months back, but he's not great to start with. He kind of looked.
What's this? Are you trying to make out you made a good pick, Paul?
You all know about my picking. You have all been on the phone asking for tips for your bets and that. Don't
picking your arse. Picking
Conor McGregor was more than enough.
Picking Klingons off your arse. That's all you're good for.
Let me address this, right? Let me just.
Irish, you've got it. You've got it. The art is
because anybody that actually wants to go back and listen to the podcast will find that I actually picked Floyd by stoppage. And what I said was, that Floyd would probably stop him later on, but that Floyd would look older, and that I thought that Conor McGregor would land on him. And I was in all of that, I was absolutely right. The one thing I did fuck up on, and I've got to say, was the power. I wasn't taking into consideration the sort of the level of the guys he was fighting in MMA. I think it's hard to sort of judge that compared to boxing. And yeah,
no, it's not.
The power thing was a fucking myth, man. It was a total fucking myth
they sold you Leonard Ellaby, everyone. They sold you absolute dreams there, Paul.
No, they pulled my pants down and proper bent me over on that. I think it was. I must concede that, but other than that, I fucking picked more accurately than any of you. What are you talking about?
What are you on about? You said, what are you actually saying? You said that Conor McGregor had a 20% chance in that fight.
No.
And of knocking out Floyd Mayweather. And he hit him with every punch he could. Floyd didn't even bother trying to get out of the way.
No.
And Floyd, at the end of the fight, Floyd was smiling. There wasn't even a cut in him. Not even a bruise.
Are you saying then that Floyd didn't look old?
He looked shit. Piss out of him. And he's about 2 stone lighter than him. Remember back, I said exactly that the standard in MMA is rubbish.
I said Floyd would stop him.
Paul, you're getting absolutely roasted in the chat. Let's put it that way.
Well, go and listen.
Let's just say that.
Just go and listen.
No, but the level of the guys that he was knocking out, when he would knock a guy out and knock them down, is because they had zero defense, and he was able to catch them flush with a fast, hard shot. And that's the reality of it. And the thing is, when he fought in the boxing, he was never able to set himself properly to do it. He knew he would get countered, either miss or get countered, or probably both.
Yeah, I think what it really shows is the size of the gap in quality between the guys in the MMA and the guys in the boxing world. That was really exposed for me.
And his the pure athleticism as well. Like, he was gassing after 3 or 4 rounds and him a bigger man.
Yeah, I know.
There was some award there, and he said, "Did you see that one?" I tweeted it. It was like some fucking idiots gave Conor McGregor one of the world's top 5 most conditioned athletes. You having a fucking laugh?
Yeah, I saw it.
He can hardly do 3 rounds of a pro fight, and it's not like it's amateur boxing where you're really going fucking balls to the wall.
Yeah, I saw that. That was fairly dubious. Let's put it that way. So Paul, you're getting absolutely roasted in the chat, but let's move on from the glorious one. The news section, there's a fair amount. Apparently, Linares versus Flanagan could be next up in the unification WBA and WBO belts. Also, Robert Easter versus Mikey Garcia, the WBC and WBO belts. Sorry, WBC and IBF belts. Sorry, are lightweight. So, what do you guys make of those fights? Are they good fights? And yeah, how would they play out for you guys if they were made?
Well, I think Mikey Garcia will absolutely take Robert Easter to school. I think he'll beat the piss out of him, to be completely honest. Robert Easter's kind of decent, but as he's stepped up in levels, he's kind of, even though he's won, he's kind of got found out for me a little bit. He's been in a couple of real sort of close wars and stuff with guys that, you know, if the potential was believed, the earlier potential was believed, he should have dealt with quite easily. I think Mikey's a level or two levels above him. What was the other one?
Linares versus Flanagan, mate.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Linares is. I don't know if Linares might be on the decline. He didn't look as good for me in the
Campbell fight.
Luke Campbell fight. Yeah, I don't. I didn't hear the podcast last week. What did you guys think of that fight?
Yeah, Irish.
Go on, Jet. Fire ahead, Jet. Fire ahead.
No, I just thought it was a decent sort of. It wasn't like a scrap or anything, a war, but it was a bit more tactical. I thought Campbell did dominate at times in terms of the ring generalship and that sort of stuff. But Linares very flashy, very you know, when he steps inside and he lets his hands go, he looks you know, tactically, offensively even. He's one of the best fighters. His skill set's ridiculous, but defensively he's very flawed. And I think Luke Campbell's jab at times really offset him, and I think his height and he was awkward. But I did have Linares just pinching the fight by a round or two. Campbell did give him a lot of problems, and you know what? There's reason there to suggest that Campbell could win a rematch if there was to be a rematch. Would I want to see a rematch? Not really, but you know, if Campbell could win a belt, I think Robert Easter should go after Robert Easter, Luke Campbell. But the fight itself wasn't the greatest. But you know, Linares did struggle a bit. Let's put it that way.
But I mean,
I just thought the styles were. I just thought like he's an awkward style. He's long.
Yeah.
And you know, I still think he won reasonably easy. I had it like 8 rounds to 4 with the knockdown.
Yeah, I did 7
knockouts,
so 3 points or something like that up. But yeah,
did you guys, Linares that was the same Linares from the Crolla fights? Because I thought Linares.
The thing is, different styles, Paul.
Yeah, I think people are putting too much emphasis into Crolla being a this sort of devastating power puncher with him knocking out Perez and him knocking out Barroso. So I think people put too much weight on Anthony Crolla, and they've hyped him up to be this, you know, this phenomenon, this Manchester phenomenon. Which, you know, he's a fairly decent fighter at whatever level he's at, but you know, against Linares, someone who's, you know, when he comes forward, he's world class. You know, he's elite. His skill set defensively, obviously not, but yeah, you're making Linares look good. You know, in the first fight, I thought Linares won fairly handily, and the second fight, he won almost every round. So, yeah, I mean, the styles make fights. That's you know, the typical and generic answer you would give to this sort of you know, fight, I guess.
I just didn't. I just saw some slowdown in Linares, and I know that the styles were different and that, but I don't know. How old is Linares now? Is he what,
30, 32, maybe 32, something like that? You know what? I'll check that. Give me a moment. But how do you think Linares versus Flanagan plays out? Flanagan, obviously, I know Irish used to be high on Flanagan. I'm not sure anymore. But how do you both of you see Linares versus Flanagan playing out?
I'm taking Linares in that.
Why?
I think Linares Terry is not as tall or as long, and you know, I think he'll struggle with the really fast hands and movement of Linares. So I think that's a Linares fight.
Yeah, Linares is 32, by the way. So points decision wide, if it does occur.
Probably an 8-4, 7-4, 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree. Flanagan did not look good for me in his last defense against Petr Petrov, was it? So really struggled against a smaller man for me. So Linares, he's a class above Petrov and should do a job if that fight occurs. Cotto.
What are you talking about? Yes, Jeff, what are you talking about? As Steve Bunn said, he deserved his 12. He deserved 12-0 in that.
Good, Steve Bunn's.
Absolutely.
You know what? He'll probably ban me on Twitter or something. But mate, that guy, I don't know how he started Box Nation /BT. Good.
Oh, come on, man. He said some good stuff like Dubois is the hardest puncher.
Oh no! I mean, the biggest puncher in the world, the biggest puncher
in the world, man. Which I mean, that's it. That's clearly the case, man. You
might as well put Ricky Burns in there as well. Jesus. Oh god. Anyway, Miguel Cotto final fight in December versus Saddam Ali. Saddam Ali, obviously, he's going to be. He lost to Jesse Vargas, I think, if I'm correct. He's moving up to 154, fighting for the WBO 154 title. And yeah, what do you guys make of that fight? Good fight, bad fight? You
disappointing.
You're happy to see Cotto go? Give me some thoughts on Miguel Cotto's career, I guess.
Well, I mean, like Cotto's been it, but I like Cotto. I think it's a disappointing fight for his last fight.
Do you think he's earned it though? Kind of how his career's panned out. It's maybe an easier touch than other opponents, potential opponents. Do you think it's better that he faces someone like this and gets maybe a decent win and then moves on and then just calls it a day?
I don't know. I suppose. I don't know. I kind of like. I just like to see him in a decent fight. I don't really see this as competitive. He's going to be quite a bit bigger than him. I don't think Saddam Ali's really up to all that much anyway. And I don't know. My initial thought when I heard that was going to be his final fight was just disappointment. I just I was expecting something a little bit more.
Cotto hasn't had a decent win, Paul, since 2007. No, since he bet Shane Mosley.
Last fight. Was it Kamagai's last fight?
Yeah, Kamagai was his last fight. We won the vacant belt, mate.
His last good win was 10 years ago against Mosley. Since then, he's lost to Margarito, lost to Pacquiao, he's lost to Mayweather, lost to Trout. They're all the good fighters he's fought since. Except he bet Sergio Martinez, but Sergio Martinez was on crutches for that fight.
Yeah, Daniel Gill, I think he weight drained Daniel Gill as well, was it? A couple of other guys as well. Yeah, I mean, Cotto's had a good career, don't get me wrong, but it's probably time to call it a day. And at least it's obviously you want to see competitive fights, but maybe he's earned it after a long, hard career. Just have a bit of an easier touch and defend his belt, call it a day, get a decent payday. So yeah, best of luck to him. Obviously, it's maybe not the fight that we all wanted to see, but nonetheless, it's going to happen. Lemieux is mandated to face Billy Joe Saunders by the WBO. So he's the new mandatory challenger. How do you see that fight panning out? Frank Warren says potentially February, March. This fight could happen. How do you see it going to plan?
Well, I mean, I think if it's Billy Joe Saunders at his best, I think Billy Joe schools him, to be completely honest. But I think just with Billy Joe Saunders, it's just like I think so much just depends on which one comes out on the night. Like he seems to be a little bit more dedicated, I guess now. Time will tell, I suppose. Lemieux could still knock him out though. Lemieux's got a lot of power. But I think Saunders will probably win.
Irish? No.
Yeah, I don't know if he schools them, lads. I think Lemieux brings pressure and he brings power, and Billy Joe is usually not able to keep a guy off for 12 rounds. You know, the guy will eventually get closer and closer to him. And the last guy you want coming close to you is fucking David Lemieux. So I think it's a good fight. I make Billy Joe maybe a 60-40 favorite if it's at home. But, you know, it's not like Billy Joe is the greatest boxer in the world. He's good, but, you know, I don't think you can tell from that Willie Monroe fight that Billy Joe is as good as he was 3 years ago. So, you know, I think it's a good fight. I think it's a good styles matchup, you know, a puncher versus a boxer. So I'm looking forward. I think it's a good fight. Looking forward to it.
I don't think you can tell from the Willie Monroe Jr. fight that I think what that Willie Monroe fight looked like to me was Billy Joe Saunders on the way back to being that to get in there. You know, like he seems to be flourishing a little bit more under Dominic Ingle. He looks in better shape and whatnot, and I guess it really depends on whether he just keeps going with that and he keeps dedicating himself and whatnot, and if he does, I personally think Billy Joe Saunders at his best, you know, is an elite boxer. I really do. I've always been quite a fan of Billy Joe Saunders. I know he's got issues with sort of like, you know, keeping his foot on the gas for 12 rounds and stuff, but time will tell. Like I said,
Yeah, I think Billy Joe should win that fight if he's up to, you know, what he's supposed to be up to. He's a very good boxer, and Lemieux's got a lot of power, but I think technically he's fairly limited, and his footwork sometimes is a bit poor, and you know he does gas in sort of the middle to late rounds, definitely, because he's charging forward and throwing a lot of bombs. So I think he definitely, you know, that's something for Billy Joe to look out in the fight if he can go the full 12. Thought he done well against Willie Monroe, but the pace suited him. So maybe the pace may be different in the Lemieux fight, and if he pushes the pace, it'll be interesting to see how Billy Joe Saunders deals with it. But a good fight nonetheless, one I'm looking forward to, and yeah, let's hope it gets made. Boxing gossip: BG has joined, the champion.
There's only one BG.
There's only one BG. Hashtag that, mate.
One
Let's
BG.
bring him in.
That's everyone.
live and direct.
All good, mate. All good. How are you? How's was it Missouri? How's Missouri?
I'm in Boston today.
Oh, okay. Jet setting, mate. I like that. What did you make of the What did you make of the weekend's action? Eubank versus Yildirim. I watched your video on it, and Crolla versus Burns, an epic, a classic. What did you make of it?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to Team Groves in the chat, who has said, BG, save these casuals. They're out of their depth. So, yeah, I think fair comment from Team Groves. I didn't watch Burns versus Crolla. I'm not sure I'm going to bother, to be honest.
Casual.
Yeah. I'll have to be honest. Like, you could say what you want about Yildirim, and I think Yildirim fought one of the worst tactical fights you're likely to see by a fighter who isn't trained by Joe Gallagher. But Eubank was devastating. I thought Eubank was exceptional. You know, you can only beat what's put in front of you. He won't be able to do that to better fighters, but I thought he looked fantastic in that fight.
How do you see, you know, a potential Groves fight going down the line? I know, you know, Groves has to obviously get through Jamie Cox, but how do you see that fight panning out? Obviously, he's come out with the sparring sort of rumours and stories saying he's bashed George Groves up when he was at 160, you know, 90% of the time. So how do you see that fight going, and what do you make of those sparring stories?
Mate, I have always thought Groves would win that fight easily. The reason being, I don't think Eubanks is big enough for Groves, and I think Groves has the best jab in British boxing. I still think Eubank is very beatable from the outside. So historically, I've always thought that's a really good matchup for Groves. I just thought that, you know, every time we've seen Eubank box from range, he's struggled. Having said that, I've started to change my mind, you know, And having seen Eubank against Abraham, Eubank against Yildirim, I know that's a certain kind of opponent, but Eubank has improved a lot. He's matured a lot. He's coming into his prime. And Groves, I know Groves is a young man, but he's got a lot of miles on the clock. And he's never been the highest stamina fighter. He's never been a fighter who's been overly good on the inside. And if Groves can't dictate the fight behind his jab, I actually think he's going to lose. I'm starting to favour Eubank in this matchup. I just don't think Groves is going to be able to deal with Eubank unless he's able to really, really, really keep him off him the whole fight with his jab. And looking at Groves these days, I'm starting to favour Eubank. You know, I think Eubank could knock out George Groves, and I think Eubank could knock out Callum Smith, and I think he could do it in quite good style. You know.
Yeah, we obviously spoke about how he would do at 168 in the tournament and that sort of stuff. Who are the obvious suspects that you would pick Eubank to potentially lose against at 168?
I think the hardest fight for him at 168 is James the Gale, because I think James the Gale, he's not got the jab of George Groves, but I still think he'd have a sort of advantage in long-range work over Eubank. I think he's got that awkwardness, he's got that movement, he's got that slickness. I think he could outpoint Junior from range. Now, I'm not saying De Gale is as devastating as Eubank on the inside, but James De Gale knows how to hang inside. He's got some tricks, he's got some smarts, he's got some angles. You know, Groves, for me, he's like a Vladimir Klitschko. He's someone who just doesn't have anything on the inside. So I think the Gale is probably the hardest matchup for Eubank. You guys know I'm a big fan of Gilberto Ramirez. But yeah, the Gale is the only one who I could say right now I'd confidently pick over Eubank. That's not to say there aren't fighters who would beat Eubank, but in terms of confidently picking fighters to beat Eubank, the Gale is the only one I'd give the majority pick to, I'd guess.
Fair enough. I think everyone on the podcast seems to be unanimous in picking Eubank over Groves at the very least. You know, they're picking him 60-40, or Paul's picking him by a bit of a wider margin. Linares versus Flanagan possibly to be made. Robert Easter versus Mikey Garcia possibly to be made. Separate unifications in the lightweight division. What do you make of that? There's a few other stuff that I asked the guys that I'll ask you as well, since you're tuning in for a short amount of time. What do you make of that, mate?
Mate, Terry Flanagan, like, okay, I know I'm an Eddie Hearn arse licker, and, you know...
He's on the Match in USA payroll, boys.
This is it. I know the really, really cool people like Irish Tom, the really cool hipsters like Terry Flanagan. I got to say, I look at Terry Flanagan, I don't see very much at all, you know. I know he's this guy, I know he's defensive and whatever. I don't look at him and see anything elite. Now, like, has Terry Flanagan beaten anyone in his career to date? You know, he's got a very limited offensive arsenal for me. He really does. You know, look at how difficult work he made of Derry Matthews compared to what Ahara Davies did to Derry Matthews. And Ahara Davies has subsequently been exposed, you know. Look at how much he struggled with that Peter Petrov guy. You know, Linares, I'm not saying Linares is some Hall of Fame great. Linares is a top-level fighter in his division. You know, Linares is probably the #1 lightweight in the world. I don't see Terry Flanagan having anything. I don't think Terry Flanagan would do as well against Linares as Luke Campbell did. Mikey Garcia versus Robert Easter. I know Paul is a big Robert Easter fan. I think Mikey Garcia chews him up and spits him out, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Mikey Garcia, I think, you know, Flanagan obviously tweeted, let's get both these fights on, and that the winner can fight for all 4 belts. And I think Mikey, if he stays at lightweight, could probably clean up and win all the belts, to be honest. Cotto versus Ali for the WBO light middleweight title. Cotto's last fight, what did you make of that being made?
Embarrassing. What a wasteful end to a career. You know, he's had this great career. He's gone down as this top-level fighter. He's been in big fights, and he wants to end his career on Kamagai and Saddam Ali. You know, these are guys who are from lower weight classes. These are guys who are nowhere near the top of their divisions in their respective weight classes. I mean, for me, the fight is about as interesting as Miguel Cotto versus Frankie Gavin. You know, I don't understand it.
It's exactly what I said.
You good, Paul? Nice to speak to you, Paul, mate. It's been a while. Hope Paul's well, mate.
Yeah, I'm all right. I said the same thing about Mikey Garcia and Robert Easter as well. I think Mikey beats the shit out of him. I think Robert Easter's kind of like got found out a little bit. He looked all right. You know, maybe 3 or 4 fights ago when nobody really knew who he was. He kind of looked decent, like so many prospects. They're coming up, they look good. And he's kind of said this earlier. He kind of like has been found out a little bit for me, as even though he's won, he's been in a lot of really close ones. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this one out to everyone now. Obviously, Dominic Brazil, his opponent was supposed to be Bermain Stavern, who's going to be facing Deontay Wilder in a rematch for the ages. So he was obviously left without an opponent. He's now going to be facing Eric Molina on that card. That leaves Dillian White without an opponent. What do you guys make of Brazil versus Molina and White, with still not having an opponent for October 28th, which is a few weeks away now?
I saw Hearn on an interview today when I was travelling, saying that they have an opponent for Dillian White, and it's going to be announced, and it's a top 15 opponent. Now, when they say top 15, I presume what they mean is it's someone with a top 15 ranking in one of the governing bodies, rather than someone who we'd consider a top 15 fighter. Brazil versus Molina, it's pretty poor, isn't it? You'd hope Brazil would come through that, because he's a more interesting fighter out of the two.
Do you think one of them will probably get a title? One of them will get a title shot at Deontay Wilder if it is Brazil. Maybe not Molina, but if it is Brazil, he might get a title shot at him.
I actually think they'll make the Dillian White fight for the winner. Eddie was saying that the Team Brazil want to do the fight. They just didn't want to do it on 4 weeks' notice. And yeah, I think Wilder's going to have to take a better fight than a Brazil or a Molina, because he's getting a lot of backlash now.
Yeah, I'd agree. Dave Allen has actually been on Twitter, and he said he's inspiring Nathan Gorman, Lawrence Okoli. Is that good preparation for Lenroy Thomas, the rematch for the Commonwealth belt, or would you like to see him spar, someone with someone else?
I think Nathan Gorman is fantastic prep, because that's where Allen got found out, isn't it? He got outclassed, he got outboxed. Nathan Gorman is a real classy operator. Lawrence Okoli, I've got to say, I don't see any similarities whatsoever, but I guess Okoli is decent sparring. But yeah, I think the Nathan Gorman sparring is great. But the thing with Dave Allen, and I like Dave Allen, but Dave Allen's had all the class sparring in the world. He's done 100 rounds with Joshua, 50 rounds with Vladimir Klitschko. He's gone and sparred Arthur Spilka. This guy has been sparring the top fighters for years now. So I don't want to be down on Dave Allen. I don't think him going and doing a few rounds with anyone at this point is going to necessarily change him as a fighter. But yeah, I guess you've got to prepare, and Gorman's good preparation, I guess.
Do you think Dave Allen? Do any of you guys think Dave Allen? He's kind of fallen into what the sparring mentality. Just go in, kind of pick up your paycheck, be a bit slippery and awkward, and going forward is very limited offense. Do you think he's kind of fallen into that category?
I think he's been in that category for a while. I think he's put himself down. I mean, to take the Ortiz fight, I think since then, I just thought if he had any kind of anything in the way of ambition, I think it was a very poor. I mean, I know there's reasons why you would take it, but I just thought poorly sort of advised, poorly managed to take a fight like that at short notice and stuff. Just those sort of things have kind of like that warning bells for me.
Yeah, I like Dave Allen. Nice guy. I just think, you know, if he maybe took it a bit more seriously, sometimes, you know, played around on Twitter and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, let's hope he does better in this Lenroy Thomas rematch. Let's hope he actually, you know, gets the W and actually progresses in his career. I know you guys have a favorite on this podcast or BG's podcast, Amir Khan. He's been running his mouth again over a Kell Brook fight, and I put in the agenda ... again. So he said obviously they both need a warm-up fight. They're coming off losses, heavy losses, and domestic dust-up at 147. What do you guys make of all of this again?
I don't give a shit about it anymore. It's just gone on for so long now. It's just ridiculous. I don't think Khan wants to fight Kell Brook. I don't think he ever has. I've always gotten that feeling from him, both in interviews, by you know, some of the stuff he said, some of the little sort of like hurdles he's put. Well, if he does this, I'll fight him. If he becomes a world champion, I'll fight him. And if he does this, I'll fight him. And he just kind of like it just. I know they sparred years ago, and that can put something in a fighter's head. You know, like depending on how that went. And I've always just had the feeling that Khan didn't really want that work, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it does seem like he's always finding a convenient excuse to avoid Brook.
Yeah,
but I would think he'd probably want to fight Brook after his last few fights. You know, 2 damaged eyes. You know, he looks not the greatest down the stretch at the weight. He seems to struggle at the weight. So yeah, I would actually think that Amir Khan would want to fight him. So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see if that fight does occur.
Tell you boys, that's a Wembley fight if ever there was one. I just can't wait for it to be in Wembley, and then we can have it. You know, it'll go on sale. It'll sell out in under 4 seconds. There won't be any tickets to be had on StubHub. It'll be pay-per-view, £100 each per person in the house that's watching it. It's just going to be the best thing for British boxing since Dave Allen versus Luis Ortiz.
On a side note, actually, I don't know if anyone caught it. Hey Bellew actually sold out within 10 minutes. I tried to get tickets actually myself, me and my cousin, and it sold out. Even the £500 ones sold out. So
you're going to that? You're trying to go to that fight?
Casual.
Yeah, I was trying to go to the man versus the Clubby man.
All the times I'm trying to organise us to go to York Hall shitfest.
I want to go to the York Hall, man.
Bellew versus Hay.
I want to go to the York Hall ones. Isn't there's a Next Gen show tomorrow, isn't it?
Fuck Next Gen. Fuck Next Gen. Jesus.
Oh yeah, Irish wouldn't want to go to Next Gen, would he?
No, because there's no competitive fights. They still, if you look at the lineup, it's still TBAs the whole fucking way down nearly.
That's your favourite opponent, isn't it? Though Irish TBA. The one
you know. This guy, how does he get sanctioned to fight like 6 times?
Just worried that
Eddie.
I reckon Irish is worried that Eddie Hearn would be at the Next Gen and chin him.
Chin him. Short arse like him.
Yeah, I wanted to add on the side note. I just remembered this. I was scrolling on my Twitter feed the other day, and Lee Selby and Carl Frampton had a bit of a run-in with each other. And Lee Selby tweeted him saying, "Let's get the fight on." Carl Frampton said, obviously he said something about warm-up, and Carl Frampton goes, "No offense, but you've been having warm-up fights your whole career, Lee Selby." So I don't know if you guys made anything of that, and if you guys like to see that fight. Frampton's obviously back in a few weeks, maybe a month or so. So any potential, you know, but what do you guys think of that?
I would like to see that fight. I think it's a good fight.
Who would you guys be picking in that fight if it was to be made? Because I know Lee Selby's been talking Gary Russell Jr. as well, who only wants unification. So potentially might happen, might not happen. But who would you pick?
I'm going to be honest. I think Selby would embarrass him.
Ooh.
Ha!
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, the Irish Storm.
I think it's a 50-50 fight. Maybe, but Selby's been looking really poor at the weight. It looks like he's been struggling with making the weight.
He
He missed weight last time, like Carl Frampton, didn't he?
Yeah, but Frampton's not big for 126. That was just Frampton being acting the bollocks. Where, you know, Selby has been looked like he's at death's door when he makes weight.
Yeah,
so I just think that he's all wrong for Frampton, if you ask me. But the thing is, I think he's struggling at that weight. So I think it's a 50-50 fight.
That would be for that last fight at the weigh-in. He looked fucking terrible. He looked, not only did he look gaunt, but he looked like yellowy. Did it like?
Yeah, it's really bad for him.
Looked really, really ill, like ill.
Yeah, he did say that if he doesn't get a big fight in his next 1 or 2 fights, that he will be moving up. So I think it'd probably be in his best interest health-wise to move up, because he looks very, very, very dry at 126 pounds. So that's probably for the best. Kind of ran through all the news fairly quickly. The upcoming fights this weekend, we'll discuss them, and anything else anyone else wants to add. Groves versus Cox in the World Boxing Super Series also is a fight on, and there's a triple header, light middleweight card. Erislandy Lara versus Terrell Gausha, Jarrett Hurd versus Austin Trout, Charlo versus Erickson Lubin. Any thoughts on those fights and how they may play out?
Great fights. Well, I mean, the Lara fight is maybe not a great fight, but I think the other two are really good fights.
Who are you guys picking in let's talk about that one first. Who are you guys picking in those fights? Obviously, Lara, Hurd, Charlo. Who are you guys picking in those fights?
Well, I've got Lara beating Gausha. I think Charlo might be a little bit too much for Lubin at this point. Lubin, he hasn't fought anywhere near the level of opposition that Charlo's fought, and he's fought very similar guys. He's fought a lot of Mexican guys that all fight a similar way, and I think Charlo, plus Lubin's a little bit open when he throws, and Charlo's a really good counter puncher.
Lubin, his footwork is a bit susceptible at times as well. He's a bit slow on his feet, I think. Lubin.
Yeah, so I think it may be a little bit too soon for Lubin. I think Charlo might win that.
Hurd versus Trout. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Hurd. I'm not completely sold on Hurd. I think he might win because I think Trout might be a little bit kind of past it now. I think he's just been in so many wars and whatnot. But I wouldn't. That's the only one I can't really, confidently call. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Trout caused the upset there either. I know Hurd's the champion, isn't he? But he's quite young and stuff. And
he had a good win against, I think it was Tony Harrison in his last fight. But Tony Harrison, obviously, they were both kind of prospects going into that fight, fighting for the vacant title.
Yeah, but Hurd took a long time to get started in that fight. I think Harrison kind of like ran out of gas, and I think Harrison was kind of winning that fight up until the point he ran out of gas.
Yeah,
I think Hurd stopped him.
Yeah, Hurd, he did stop him.
So
fighter, I think Trout may give him, a lot of problems in that fight, but he may come out just on youth and upside, maybe just down to activity, maybe. Gossip, any thoughts on that card, 154 card, mate?
I'll be honest and say that a lot of these 154 fighters, they kind of all sort of blend into one, like in my head. A lot of these fights, it just seems to be like a strange division.
That's just because gossip's a racist.
Oh, God.
Classy. What I was trying to say is you've got a lot of guys who are in and around the same level who fight a not completely dissimilar style. You know, they're guys who utilize long range work. They're guys who move. They're guys who are quite slick. You know, the kind of, I don't know if you guys remember when Lara and Trout fought, for example. It was just the kind of fight that sort of cancelled each other out, you know, in terms of the styles and both being so awkward and that sort of thing. The one that has always stood out for me, and it's the name that we haven't mentioned, is Demetrius Andrade. You know, I think he is the one who is the one who could go on to be elite. But out of the ones we're talking about, from what I've seen, Erislandi Lara is the best.
Yeah, Andre is actually moving up to 160. He signed a multi-fight deal with HBO, and he's called out Golovkin. So he'll be campaigning at 160.
Well, I hope that Eddie Hearn starts working with him, because Eddie Hearn can turn him into a superstar, and you know, match him up with guys like Daniel Jacobs and other people from our stable.
I heard Irish laughing there.
Yeah, from our stable. You know what Gossip was trying to say earlier, that he finds it difficult to tell the difference between all those fighters.
And on that note,
no, I think people are sleeping on this Lubin guy. I think this Lubin guy could be an elite fighter. And I'm picking him against Charlo.
I do think good, but I think he's very inexperienced at this level. He's what, 20 years old?
Yeah, but I think this could be a breakthrough fight. Like,
and it's not that I rate
either.
I don't rate him. The twin brothers.
You can get 7-5 on Lubin. I think that's probably a good price. Chance he'll just totally win that easy. That Charlo was getting outboxed by the Jackson guy. You know, the guy
John
that Andy Lee sparred. Yeah, he was getting outboxed, and then he caught him with a shot to the eye. Do you remember that? And then he turned back, and he was discombobulated.
He beat Charles Hatt. He was out for about 20 months or something like that, 22 months, something like that. Yeah, so,
and Lubin's an awful lot better than him. I think Lubin could be elite. Like Lubin is a tip for me for like a top 10 pound for pound guy.
He's good.
Yeah. So, with Gervonta Davis and David Benavidez, I guess.
That's it. Is this coming from Gossip, who picked fucking Mikey Garcia to lose against Adrian Broner?
No, I did not.
The chat knows the truth here, lads. The chat knows the truth.
You can make up predictions, but I have it on record. You saying Benavidez and Gervonta Davis were top 10 pound for pound. So I think
absolutely, and
we're going on record.
Absolutely.
Let's have Lubin as number one.
No, he's not number one. I said he was coming on. Between yourself and Paul picks McGregor and thinks he can just get away with it. and Gossip picking Broner. Chancellor's declared him.
I'd like to point out it's also a matter of record that I actually picked Floyd to win by stoppage. I think you'll find. Well done,
I'm telling you, lad. The chat knows. The chat knows.
The chat does know. That's the point.
I'm just couldn't stop laughing.
I don't think that's the point.
On that note, Groves versus Cox. What are your thoughts on that?
Who are you talking to now?
It should be
Gossip.
I'll put it open. Anyone can answer.
It should be. Look, I listened to Eddie Hearn, right? Eddie Hearn is a great man. And
did you hear his interview?
He was saying that people in boxing know Jamie Cox. He's a good fighter. They know from the gyms, etc. Eddie Hearn then went on to say that Groves doesn't face a lot of people with power. He faced a notable non-puncher in Badu Jack, and now he's going up against Jamie Cox. Now, I'm going to be honest. You guys know I'm an Eddie Hearn fan, but I'm going to totally and utterly disagree with Eddie Hearn there. Jamie Cox is a non-puncher. Jamie Cox has gone the distance with people at below British level. You know, Badu Jack, who George Groves arguably beat, is a guy on the peripheries of the pound for pound top 10 list, and a genuine pound for pound top 10 list, not a pound for pound top 10 list where we choose people because we like their names. Groves is developed into a very, very good fighter. He's beatable. He's got his frailties. Jamie Cox, I've seen nothing from Cox to convince me that he's above the sort of Rocky Fielding, John Ryder level. He's very technically flawed. He's completely defensively inept. He's tiny for the weight. His technique is abominable.
I was
He's
going
got
to say the size difference is good. Didn't Cox start? Did Cox start off at 147 or 154? I think it might be
welterweight. He started at
welterweight. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the size difference is also going to be. I mean, I agree with everything Gossip said there, but I think the size difference is going to be huge as well. I think he's not going to have the power to knock out Groves, and he certainly hasn't got the skill to outbox him. So I don't see anything other than a Groves win here.
Jamie Cox blocks punches with his face, doesn't he? I mean, I know he might be a tough man and that sort of stuff, but George Groves, I mean, even in the Chudinov fight when he won the world title, he was throwing some serious leather. And if he's throwing that Jamie Cox's way, I mean, Jamie Cox better have some answer because he's going to get pulled out very quickly.
This is it. Like, Cox, for me, is a very similar fighter to Fedor Chudinov, but he's not as good as Chudinov, in my opinion. I find it hard to see him finding an answer for a guy like George Groves.
Yeah, I agree. Irish, any thoughts on your main man, Jamie Cox?
He's going to kill Groves the Irish way.
Well, what about Irish takeover, Rio takeover?
Jamie Cox is unfortunately an element of this Irish takeover. So it's continuing.
And there it is. Anything anyone else wants to add?
I've got something to say from Gossip snide comments about picking the top 10 pound for pound based on names. If anybody should get in there, Cox would be a great one for the top 10 pound for pound, wouldn't it?
I don't know how you held yourself back, mate.
Yeah. Irish. You never fail to make someone laugh, do you?
Yeah.
I just failed there.
You did. I just like to say I thought Eddie Hearn's new haircut looked really, really good when he was at their press conference. I thought and I thought his eyes were lovely.
I just wanted to say that I suspect Gossip is drinking on the job.
Yeah, I'm absolutely hammered. That's true.
Are you?
Yeah.
I like that, Gossip. I like that. Anything else anyone else wants to add? No. All right. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. Gossip, thank you very much for joining from the States. You know, reporting from Matchroom HQ in the States. Paul, thanks for jumping on. Hope you're better as well. Irish, you're a legend. Rio takeover, Irish takeover. All the goods. We'll be back next week, I guess, on Gossip's channel. I think he'll be back this week.
Yes, it should be back.
Yeah, so next week we'll probably be switching over to his channel. So head over to his channel, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you very much for joining. Please, everyone, leave the thumbs up. Go to the Gossip channel, subscribe there, leave the thumbs up on this. We've had about 75 odd people viewing. Who is playing that?
I just thought I'd play a little tune for Paul. For he lost, his man Mystic Meg lost.
Irish.
So I thought I'd play him a little bit of. He must be misty now for all that's happened to him.
Yeah,